Liam Schnell, welcome to Backstage Agents.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Welcome.
We're excited to have you. You're one of our first guests, so this will be very fun.
There we go. Love to be that guinea pig.
Yes, of course. So you are an insurance agent.
I am.
And we have worked together, and it's been a ton of fun on the deals that I've been able to get over in your direction. But prior to insurance, kind of what led you into that world?
Oh, man.
I know that's a big question.
Insurance is, I don't know any insurance agent who found it because they were looking for it, right? No one, I mean, Dan, you've said it a minute ago, that no one is going out and looking for, like, oh yeah, how do I go become an insurance agent?
Sure
I found it very indirectly. There are a ton of networking groups that meet in Nashville, and one of them is called BNI.
Mm-hmm.
And my wife was a member of BNI for a long time, and I had become friends with music industry, a gentleman who he does health insurance, and sit down, have a beer with him, and he's like, "Yeah, you only have to take a couple of phone calls late at night and." Someone who's at the hospital going like, yeah, you can tell them this is covered. You're going to be okay, right? This won't financially ruin you. And you will like, oh, all of a sudden my job means something, right? I have some value here. I didn't last very long in health insurance. I don't think anyone does. But that was kind of my first foray into insurance. I came from engineering, and sitting at a desk all day doing engineering was not what worked for me.
So you had you got a degree in engineering?
No. So funny enough, several years back, Nashville, when we got Google Fiber, there was a contractor for NES that got hired to help do a lot of surveying around town for putting Google Fiber underground, on telephone poles, all that sort of thing. I went to school for marketing and communications, and they just needed warm bodies that were going to go do these site surveys.
Okay.
I'm like, that's fine. You're going to be outside all day long doing work. Like, that sounds perfect. Who knows how long I'll do it. And I did it for, I think, 5 years.
Okay.
And I was good at it. But if you are good at something, they'll give you a little more. And after a while, like, well, we need you back in the office for a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more. And I went from like, I was outside 35 of my 40 hours to I wasn't outside at all. And if you're just locked at your desk all day, 8 hours a day, there's some people that love that, and that's fine. I wasn't one of those guys. Yeah. So once I was full-time at my desk, I lasted less than a year. And that was kind of where, once I was full-time at my desk, it became clear. It's like, I have to go somewhere else, do something else. And that was what prompted me to, hit my friend who does health insurance, his name's Hunter. Once I got into insurance, it was go take a meeting with somebody, go get to know them, and you build a relationship with people all over the city. And all of a sudden that's work. And it was this epiphany moment of like, oh, I don't have to be locked at my desk all day to pay my mortgage. I can go have coffee. I can go have a beer, go make friends with other professionals around the city. And that brings business in. Like, oh, okay. And I will say that shout out to, the concept of BNI is very heavily focused on their motto is givers gain, right? The idea is give more than you get. And I think we talked about that the very first time we met. I think, not to dive into insurance too much, but if I'm writing someone's home insurance, I'm the last person in line, right? They have a realtor, they have a lender, they have title. I'm just a speed bump on the way to getting their home closed. So it's very unusual for people that write home insurance to be able to send a referral to bring value to anyone that sends them business. But BNI kind of teaches you ways to be better at that. Find ways that I can send you deals, right? Who do you get business from? Okay, I'm going to go find those people for you. And just that mindset shift, finding insurance that way, the kind of well, I had to leave where I was, and now I'm in insurance, and it's this total mind shift change from being a 9-to-5 employee to being someone who's in sales, in a relationship building mode where I'm not cold calling people 100 cold calls a day. I'm not just dialing my face off. I'm just I just go have coffee with people.
Yeah. Dan's the cold calling king over here.
Not anymore. I'm reformed.
There,
I've seen the light.
there was a period when I think Dan called all of Nashville.
A couple times.
When I made my stint in health insurance, I did a lot of cold calling.
Yeah.
It's bless those people if you can do it more than a
Well,
year.
they don't pick up the phone.
Not anymore.
Anybody picks up the phone?
Not anymore.
Do you pick up the phone?
Oh God, no.
Yeah.
Christian doesn't.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Well, Christian does.
Oh, he does. I mean, depending who it is or what it is.
Yeah. I'm one of those unicorns still where I still answer my phone.
Yeah.
You're in
So-
sales. At some point, you got to be like,
Yeah.
weigh the dice.
How do you guys meet?
So Zach, one of our previous guests,
Zach.
actually connected us.
Absolutely.
And we sat down, we grabbed coffee, we had a great time. And insurance is one of those things. It was when I was newer into the business, and I was still trying to figure out the people that I wanted to send business to, because there are people, I get a majority of my business from realtors. And then from there are things that I refer out, such as title and insurance. And so Zach connected me with Liam, and I had not yet met an insurance agent that I enjoyed being around, that sort of thing. And we sat down, or who wasn't, like 60 years old. And, and not that there's anything wrong with that. It's just not, I want to be able to refer people in my age range, because that's a lot of whom I work with, who are good at their jobs. And somebody, much like if you refer the 30-year-old to a 60-year-old lender, it might just not be a match. Like, I'm sure the deal will get done, but like Liam just had more that he could relate to on some of my clients and the age range that they're in. So we hit it off, and then every now and then we'll get together and we get to work deals every now and then, and it's a ton of fun.
So you were a beer, or Christian was a beer you had. You said you left the office to go have beers and network with people.
Yeah, 100%.
So this is
100%.
a result of that.
So
now you're doing business together.
100%.
So that works.
That's how, I guess I don't know how it works in other cities, but that's how it works here.
Yeah.
It works anywhere, actually.
Yeah, it's Nashville's cool for that, because you build up the network, you meet people, and music very much the same. You meet people and you want to do business with people that you like. I always tell people I want to do business with, when I see my phone ring and their name comes up, I don't want to be going, oh shit. I gotta answer this phone call. Yep. And I've definitely had some of those before, and it became very clear to me, and so I don't need to chase this business anymore, because I don't want to. It's just not business that I want. The headache is not worth the closings that result from it. But so there are people like that where you see their name come in, it's like, oh boy, what is gonna happen here? Where you run into people like Liam, their name comes up, and it's like, oh, heck yeah, I get to chat with Liam. Not only do we get to talk about business, but how's your wife doing? How's the move? How, all these other things, quick 5 minutes. And it's nice. It feels like it just feels a little bit more personal.
Cool.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Yeah. So it's a ton of fun. And then prior to engineering, I know you were a big baseball guy. So
I love baseball more than I think most humans, which is fine. Baseball's very old fashioned. But yeah, I spent a lot of time playing baseball. I have probably 60-year-old knees to prove how much time I spent. I was a catcher, so yeah, terrible knees. But I guess baseball has just kind of become my default, right? Where it's like, I grew up in the Cincinnati area, and if you grew up in probably LA or Chicago, Cincinnati for me, there are some like really legendary radio broadcasters. And so I grew up listening to Marty Brennaman and Joe Nuxall on the radio all the time. So my love of baseball is like, I'm the nerd that pays the MLB so that I can listen to radio broadcasts, because I'd rather listen to the radio than watch the television. I think what they're telling me kind of satisfies my baseball nerd brain better than the television, right? Because they're relying on what you're seeing. Like if I'm in my car in the summer, 9 times out of 10, I've got the Reds playing on my radio.
Are the Reds your team?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
And it is like being a Cubs fan sometimes, or a Twins fan sometimes. It's a lot of pain.
Yeah.
But I love baseball, so we've got an okay team this year.
Yeah. So did you make a shot at the major leagues when you were playing, or was it something that you played in college and then just decided after that to not pursue any further than that?
I was all set to go to college and play ball in school. When I graduated high school, I thought I was on the path. But very quickly in college, I had a pretty gnarly shoulder injury. And one of the things you also learn going into college ball is it's not a game anymore. It's a job.
Yep.
It is, weights at 6 a.m. It's practice at 3 p.m. and then again later at 7 p.m. There's no room for a life outside of the sport you play in college. And I'm sure every other college athlete feels the same way. But when confronted with the amount of time it took to play at that level, and also now I'm injured, I'm just trying to put in all the work to go nowhere. I kind of lost the love for a while.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people too. I what's the phrase? You hung up your cleats. I'd had enough. And that's fine. I think everyone kind of gets to that point where you've had enough playing the game because it becomes so much work. And so now I coach.
Nice.
I'm kind of in between teams right now because of the move.
Yeah.
But for the longest time, I coached Lipscomb middle school baseball. I did that
Nice.
for about 5 or 6 years. And it is amazing. I think a lot of people don't like middle school. I think it's outstanding. Every kid is awkward and maybe a little smelly, and they don't know what's going on. And they're still enthusiastic about playing the game. I have loved it.
Yeah.
I have loved it.
It's really funny because it sounds like you had the foresight when you were in college to go, because it sounds like, was your injury career ending, or was it something that you could have come back from?
The injury that was kind of like the straw that broke the camel's back for me was not, it was season ending, but not career ending. But I had become the player that got injured a lot.
Okay.
Despite however much work I did for diet, for exercise, for whatever, I just felt like I was always injured.
Yeah.
And that really can suck the joy out of it as well. And I kind of feel like I saw the writing on the wall. It was, I'm not making it through any season. The last time I'd made it through a whole season with no injury at all was probably my sophomore year in high school.
Okay.
Junior and senior year both had injuries that waylaid me for quite a bit of time. And obviously, like, it was time.
Yeah. So it sounds like you had the foresight to go, if I keep going down this path, it's going to completely ruin this thing that I love. And that's awesome that you had the foresight to go, I'm going to take a step back and keep my love intact for this, because coming from music, and like, I saw that writing on the wall and went, I'm going to do it anyway. And went down that road, and for the better part of a decade, and for a long time it was great. And then there was a point when I was like, I'm not enjoying this anymore. And it's like being in a bad relationship where you hit that point and you're like, maybe though, like, maybe we can keep going. And then you go, that keep going turns into 2 years. And then when you do hit that point, you're completely burned out. And I just remember I got to the point where I would get home from the road and I would look at a bass guitar and I'd just be like, I don't want to touch it. I don't want to look at it. I don't want to see it. And totally burned out. And it took me the better part of 2 years after being on the road, full time, to start to enjoy music again. Like, I'm just getting back to the place now where I can go out and play shows and enjoy them again, because for so long I would get on stage and I would look at the bottom of that set list and be like, how fast can we get there? Yeah. So I can go back to, to being and which sounds insane to people, because I'm standing in front of sometimes 20,000 people a night. Yeah. And people would hear that and be like, that's absurd. You didn't enjoy doing this. It's like, no, I was miserable.
I'm toast.
Yeah.
I'm done.
Yeah.
Man, that's tough. Do you think that now that you've I mean, so there's the difference for me and for you here is that I am now older enough where it's like there's no chance. So it's like if I found the love of playing again, it's too late.
Yeah.
Do you think that like, well, you might find it again? Is there a little
I'm getting back to that place.
Twinging in the back of your brain. Yeah. It's like, I have the itch again.
Yeah, it's funny. I just did some CMA gigs, and it was a ton of fun to get back out there.
Okay.
And there is something about like getting up there and doing it. And the whole reason that I made the pivot that I made was what killed music for me was the business side of it. And having to be reliant on it for my income.
Sure.
And so I realized, whether I like it or not, I realized at some point in my late 20s that I'm pretty money motivated, which doesn't necessarily line up great with being a touring bass player. And I'm not a person who needs to go out there and make $1 million a year.
Sure.
I'm not that, but I was getting to the point in life where I saw the writing on the wall and going, if I keep doing this isn't going to be enough, and it's just going to stress me out. And I was stressed out. And I live about as simply as you can humanly live for an adult my age. And so I was like, I need to add something else in so I can take the financial pressure off of this and the arguing with business managers for every penny that I get paid. And that's not to say now that I come into a situation, if somebody calls me for a gig and goes, hey, we're going to pay you $100 to drive out to Timbuktu on the West Coast, and you have to pay for your own food. Like, I'm not going to do that. I always tell people I need to be fairly compensated for where the situation is at.
Yeah.
Take care of me, but I don't care about the money anymore. And I've noticed that that's taken a huge load off of playing, and I've gotten to the point now where I enjoy the playing again. And it's kind of what you were saying too. Like, although if you found your love for baseball again, you're limited by your body, but you're finding other ways to implement that into your life through coaching. Very true. That's kind of where I'm at with music. Is I'm like, I don't know if I want to go out and get on a bus again and tour, but I do know that I want to be involved in music in some capacity. So maybe that doesn't look like necessarily going out on the road and touring. Maybe it looks like something else. I haven't figured that out yet. And maybe it does look like getting back on a bus again and taking a gig. But what I like about that world is kind of the world is your oyster, and you never know, if you're keeping your network up, who's going to call you for what opportunity. And now I can just be open to whatever opportunity with a really fresh palate, which is nice.
It's Nashville. You live in a great city if you want to go find the session musician route.
Oh yeah, and I love playing in the studio. It's a ton of fun. I've always enjoyed that. My brain works really well for that, for whatever reason.
You get to go home and sleep in your own bed.
Get to sleep in your own bed, and there's something about being on the floor and creating. That's really cool. Nice. I had a great gig for a long time where we got to play on the artist records, and that was super cool. And I really enjoyed that process of being on the floor and creating something that's going to live on forever. It's a really hard egg to crack in this town because you're talking about the best players in the world. And it's competitive at musicians will shy away from talking about anything competitive, but at the end of the day, and Dan, you know this in songwriting, it's competitive. Like you're out there looking out for yourself.
Now we're talking my language.
Yes. It's, you are the only one who can advocate for you. And if you don't, somebody else is going to come and swipe your spot. And you're gonna be out of work, so you have to be your own best advocate in every situation. So I would love to do more of it, but it is one of those things where it's like starting a business from the ground up again. Like, you can tour for a decade, But most of the guys who have made that transition, they will come off of the road and it's basically like starting their careers over again because it's two entirely different worlds. And session guys don't mix with live guys that often.
Really?
Yeah. It's...
see, not my world. I would know.
Yeah, and most of the music that you listen to in a pop or country setting, the studio band is different than the live band. And
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
And so there's not a lot of cross pollination. So if you're coming off the road to try and do studio, the network is different.
You don't know anybody.
You don't know anybody.
That's tough. Okay,
Yeah.
I guess I didn't realize that.
Yeah, so it's a bit of a different world.
I get the idea of building a network in a new town and or a new place, and that's
because
that's a years long process.
Yes, it's not overnight, and that's like everybody will tell you. Like music's just a slow burn to begin with. The session world is about as slow of a burn as you can get. You know, I've watched friends do it well, but they've been doing it for a decade now. And trying to build in, and now a decade later, they're starting to get the calls, and they're just starting to crack into that world.
So incredibly slow, man. I hope your spouse makes good money, or you've got some good investments holding you up, because 10 years is brutally slow.
It's a long time, and that's what's nice about our business is you can jump into something like real estate or insurance.
Oh yeah.
You're not going to be making $1 million overnight, but it is something that if you follow the steps and scale in 2 or 3 years, you can be making a good living.
Yeah. It's not a get rich quick scheme.
No.
But if you take the right steps to build a business that isn't cold call oriented, right? Where you have a network of people that have got your interests at heart, right? If I'm looking for realtors for my meetings, if you're talking to your buyers going, okay, I need you to talk to this person, right? It's like, if I build those relationships and you build those relationships, it's, I don't know, I would say like 2 to 3 years. 10 years sounds awful.
Yeah, that's like,
but 2 to 3 years, you can build yourself a good network that will, that if you're working with them and feeding them, they'll continue to feed you.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And music is very much the same in that. It's just you have such an influx of players in town, especially over the last couple of years. And
I bet.
You have to think about who are the major touring acts right now, and there's maybe 15 of them. And as a bass player, there's one bass player in all these bands. It's a lot of, again, competition for a finite amount of spots. So it can be a slower thing, and there's going to be periods, and I've experienced this myself, when you're on the top of the world and then you're at the bottom. And anybody who's been in that business, music is, they've experienced that. Or they've almost touched it, and then something happens and the rug gets pulled out. It's a wild business, and not for the faint of heart.
It sounds like it. Oh my gosh.
But so your baseball experience, were you super competitive as a kid?
Yes. I think most, I guess I don't know how to tell it from a woman's perspective, but I think for most boys, whatever sport you learn to play as a child, you play it because it's fun, right? It's fun. You're out there with your pals, you're just beep-bopping around. It's a fun time. But at a certain point, I would say just about every boy figures, you get to this point where you learn how fun winning is. It's a shift. And all of a sudden, the fun of the game kind of gets replaced by the fun of winning. And the fun of winning is addicting. It is especially if you have a kid in another team that just grinds your gears, just pummeling their team into the dirt and you walk away with that W, it is hard to replace that level of satisfaction. And I think if it's something that really drives you, you just apply it to wherever else you go in life. Right. And we're all our own person. You get to decide what winning is for you. I get to decide what winning is for me. And for me, right, obviously, I had to leave baseball where I'm playing. But winning for me is, I've coached players that are D1 athletes now, right? They're playing for the College World Series. That feels like a win, right? It's like, oh, hey, I coached that kid, right? Maybe I didn't have the largest impact on him. Maybe a different coach did, but at a certain level, like, and I think that applies to you and you. It's like it's baseball to me taught me to love to win, and at a certain level, like, okay, if I like that, I'm going to do what it takes to get there, right?
What's winning in the business you're at today?
Oh man, that is a broad question. There are little wins, right?
Is there? That's a better question.
There are definitely wins. There are wins where I won that sale. I knew I was competing against another agent, and I got the sale, right? One of the things I love about sales is when I talk to someone, again, communications and marketing background, every time I'm talking to someone, they have a certain way that they want to be sold to, right? No one wants to be sold, but they have a certain way they want to be talked to, approached to. Spent some time in engineering, right? If you talk to an engineer, most of them, they want a lot of little details. They want to know the detail on everything. They want numbers, they want facts, they want, give me all of the data and let me understand it and make my own decision. And that's fine, right? And so I can talk to the engineers, right? It's easy. I spend enough time to working with them. So a win for me is I'll talk to that person. I figure out what it is that how do they need to feel good about this, and then cater how I'm explaining my product to them, right? A lot of times people don't care about insurance, and that is totally okay. That's my job, right? My job is to care about insurance. So a lot of times I'm talking to someone and, if I'm telling them like, look, this is the policy that I would write for myself. If I was buying this house, this is what I would want. And I can't tell you how many times people are like, oh, okay, I don't care about the details.
That's good enough for me.
That's good enough for me.
Right.
Yeah. And so there's a lot of trust building that you have to do to get to that point. So a small win is a sale, right? I knew I was competing against someone. But big wins, I set out at the beginning of every year and I put my business goals on paper, right? I write them down, right? It's tangible. Sometimes I type it, but right. How much insurance do I want to write this year in which area? I have two primary focuses. I do home and auto a lot, and I do employee benefits, which is health insurance for small to medium companies, right? How many deals do I want this year? And if I tackle that, that's a huge win. And I give myself rewards along the way because I'm not self-employed, but I'm relatively my own boss, right? I'm in sales, right? If I don't get up and do anything today, my boss doesn't care, right? But I don't get paid. Right. So I have to be self-motivated, whether it's things like, all right, I hit my monthly sales goal. I love to cook. I'm making myself a steak dinner, right? I'm buying the best ribeye I can find. I'm buying a bottle of wine. That's my reward. And if I get to the end of the year and I've hit every goal, if I hit every goal, I'm almost disappointed in myself because I didn't challenge myself well enough, right? I didn't set the goal. I want to hit some of them, but if I hit all of them, my goals were too easy. And you do that long enough, right? I'm gamifying my own job. And gosh, gamifying something really helps you take your brain out of like, it kind of sucks to do this, whether, every job that you do, there are some parts of it that just kind of suck. And that is okay. And you just got to find a way around it. You got to find a way to embrace it and you will find what you're looking for. So if I'm looking for the things that I like, I will like my job.
I don't know if that's a book that's already been written, but that's a great title.
What's that?
Gamifying.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. So if you ever watch it's on Netflix now, the documentary The Last Dance, it's about Michael Jordan.
I was literally about to mention that to you.
He talks about gamifying. He is like, I focus so heavily on like, I want to get 20 points against that guy, right? Whether he gets any other points in the game, he doesn't care. And all of a sudden, right, sports is a big mental game. And I'm sure, not being a musician, I don't know, but I'm sure being a musician is its own mental game.
98% mental.
And if you gamify it to the level where like, I'm just focused on getting 20 points against this guy. I want to get 5 rebounds against that guy. You stop focusing on, am I playing well? You stop hyper analyzing the mistakes you made 5 minutes ago. Like you're so hyper focused on accomplishing this task. I mean, if you do all the prep work, you're good at your craft. Right. And gamifying it lets your brain focus on something fun and not focus on the mistakes you made, not letting you drag yourself down mentally throughout whatever it is that you're doing. If I can find a way to gamify it, I will.
Nice. Yeah, it's funny. I was about to ask you if you had seen The Last
Dance.
Oh
my gosh. I think it's one of the best sports documentaries that's ever been made.
Yeah, I think it's one of the better just documentaries out there in general. I remember watching that over the pandemic when I was sitting at home and we weren't touring and just being so amped up to get back out there because it's a clinic in understanding that. And for me, it wasn't necessarily Michael Jordan. It was the team around Michael Jordan. And in music, it's less you have the star, you have the Michael Jordan of every situation. How does the team come together to execute what the star is trying to do? And I got obsessed with those concepts over the pandemic, and it's like, how do we make the team as best as possible so the star can come out and play the show to the best of their ability?
Every team needs a Dennis Rodman.
That's what I was gonna say. Needs a Dennis Rodman.
Every team needs a Dennis Rodman. The most selfless, like, I'm just here for rebounds guy. Like, are you kidding me?
I think bass players kind of default to that role. Okay. Like we're just hair. We're very much in the support role of the band. Like if you ask most people if you ask them what a bass guitar sounded like, they would have no idea. But you would know if you're watching a show, if it's gone. You may not be able to say why something isn't right, but you would know that something is off.
Oh, sure.
And it's the same thing in watching that documentary. Every player had a very distinct role on that team.
Yes.
And what was the most fun was watching how other players would adjust on that team when somebody was having a bad day or whatever it may be. And what was also fun was watching things like Jordan never had a bad day. That what was that, the stomach flu game where he came out? Like there's
just sweating bullets.
And I also liked that documentary for so many reasons, but like he set a tone for that team.
I would agree.
And that's what I loved about it. And it was another lesson in, especially as a person who plays in a support role, sometimes I go a little bit overboard in what I want, and I forget to take my cue from the leader because maybe they don't want that. And that was kind of at the end of the last artist that I was playing for. I wanted to push to a place where I just don't think that the product wanted to go, where the leader wanted the product to go. And then there was some rub and unplugged from that. But that documentary was just so insightful for so many reasons. And it's a clinic in like teams and being a star, and you can apply it to anything.
Like a catcher too, like the pitcher's a star.
Oh yeah. A catcher is the most thankless position on the field. Absolutely.
One of the most necessary things. Holds it all together. A bass player.
I think a lot of people, there's this analogy of like watching baseball is like watching the ocean, right? It looks very boring on the surface and all the life is going on underneath it. Like most baseball teams, the catcher is the quarterback. The catcher is the one that's organizing, okay, I need the defense to shift over here. The catcher is the one that needs to know, okay, well, this guy really likes stuff down and away, so we're going to hit him high and tight. The catcher is the one who's the therapist and psychologist for this high-strung pitcher that's out there and just needs to massage their ego a little bit and guide them into, all right, we don't want to throw that slider out and away because that's what this guy likes.
Yeah.
You only know if you make a mistake.
Oh,
If you miss a ball or something.
Sure.
I mean, once in a while, every moment, throw
Yeah.
someone out in second.
I learned this one early, thankfully. I love mistakes. Mistakes are the best teacher on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of people are like, they're so afraid of mistakes, they won't try something. Like, man, no, go wing it.
Yeah.
Just if you want to throw that slider low and away and he smokes it, that's fine. Well, now we learn a lesson together. Listen to your catcher.
Yeah.
Yep. But yeah, and I feel like I've tried to take that into my, career as well. It's like, again, you talked about it. No one starts off going like, "Ooh, I want to be an insurance agent." But I failed at a lot of things. Failed is the wrong word. I made mistakes and found where I am now. And if you are afraid to make mistakes, like you'll just kind of stay in your narrow box and you'll never really break out and you'll never go anywhere. And if you stay in your safe box and you like it, good for you.
Yeah. Yeah. That was never for me. I don't think anybody sitting at this table that the kind of living in that box was even an option. It just was never an option.
It was never an option
for me. Like I had to go out and just do my own thing
Sure.
and figure it out. And I never
go make mistakes.
Yeah, and go make mistakes and figure it out. And you learn a lot, and then it makes you better for the next situation you take yourself into.
Oh yeah.
It's funny what you mentioned about mistakes. Is I remember doing an early interview when I was playing music. I was on a podcast, and the guy asked me something to the effect of, what do you love about shows going right, like the perfect show and the ideal, asking me all these things about the just ideal show. And I told him, I was like, man, I don't really love a show that goes off perfectly.
Okay.
It means I showed up and I did my job and everything fired correctly in the way that it was supposed to, but I didn't learn anything from that. Yeah. There were no mistakes made from that. What I love is the shows that don't go right. What didn't go right?
How do we handle that?
How did we handle it? Why didn't we handle it well? What can we do next time?
Right.
And so that's my brain is always in that refining process. Like when I go out there and nail something, it means I did my job right and did what I was supposed to be doing, which is great and it's awesome. But when I don't nail something, I always step back and go, what can we learn here and why didn't it go right? How did I screw that up?
Right.
And that's the difference between someone who's great at playing their instrument or whatever it is, or, the craft of selling insurance or something like that. The people in this town who think they are great, and there is no room for improvement. They're in for a rude awakening. Yeah. Like I was telling a guy the other day, I said, you know what? You come to town, you think you're the best guitar player in town, till the guy making your Whopper smoke you.
Yep.
Yes.
Because nobody cares, how great you played in Nowhereville, Ohio.
There is you talk about like bass players not being that notable. And how like, if you're not careful, someone is just going to rise to the top right up behind you. You were talking about in COVID, there was a guy, he's on Instagram. That's how I found him. Again, good millennial. My social media is on Instagram. Giacomo Turo.
Yep.
It's just like, he just came out of nowhere. And it's like, this is like the most famous bass player on social media right now. Like, where did he come from? He was just doing his thing.
Yep. And people were bored at home and they saw it. And and it's funny. I always go back and forth because I don't do much social media with music. Okay. Because I'm very like, there are two, as I put it, like two very distinct paths. Like there are guys like that who they have a voice on whatever instrument that they're playing, and they're gonna go out there and they're gonna kill. And it doesn't matter what instrument that you put in your hand. I'm very much on the other route where I'm in a support role, and where I'm bringing artist music to life. So I don't. Like, my goal is not to be the star of the show. My goal is to be the best support person there can be. And especially in pop and country music, it tends to just being stupid simple when it comes to playing bass. And there's an art form to it. And it's funny, the issues that I see a lot of, especially guys who are newer to town, have is they think they're the star of the show, but they're not. And you kind of have to go and get your teeth kicked in for a long time. And this is one of these things. You either figure this out or you don't, and your phone stops ringing. But you have to figure out that you're not the star of the show, and you have to swallow your own ego and realize you're on stage to make somebody else's product great.
Sure.
Which translate to what we do now. You're coming in to, at the end of a real estate transaction, to put a bow on it and make it great, and be that last touch point of the experience to make it great. And it is a fairly thankless job.
He's the catcher.
I'm the catcher. That's right. I got to hold this baby. Everyone else has done their job. All I got to do is not mess up.
Don't drop the ball.
And just, get it across the line. One of the things that I learned in health insurance was, and it's going to sound terribly vulgar, verbal blowjobs. And it's one of my favorite aspects of sales. However you get a referral, pump that person up. That person if I get a referral from you, right, you're never going to know that I'm pumping you up to the people that you sent me. Like, oh, wow, you got fear from Christian. How did you get to Christian, right? I'm like, I don't know if you know this or not, but he's one of the best lenders in town. Like, how did you tell me how you got to him? And I'm telling you, it makes my job so much easier if they think they made a good decision with you. Yep. Because that just reflects back on me. So I'm just, Stone or you or whoever got the referral. Like it's just... Yeah. I'm the support role. I'm here to make you guys look good.
Yeah, and it's funny because I do the same thing when a referral comes in from a realtor. You have made the right decision. They're going to handle this transaction, and it's going to be great.
Yep.
And that kind of goes back to the whole networking and doing business with people that you like to be doing business with, because 100%. I'm one of those people. I'm black and white, and I'm honest, and I'm direct. And I think that's why people like me. I think in these businesses, you get a lot of people who are not that. It's something about it just feels off. And my goal is to offset that. I'm going to paint you the honest picture, even if you asking me what the rate is not what you want to hear. I'm going to give you an honest answer, and we're going to set that expectation up front that this is where that is. And if anybody is giving you much lower than this, I can promise you it's bullshit. And something, it's like insurance quotes, like something is going to happen if you go with that person. You're a week before closing, you're going to be calling me. And you know it. And so I like doing business with people I like, and that's why I spend my time doing business and building relationships with referral partners, because you can pump them up, and then it's not bullshit coming out of your mouth.
No,
it's genuine. This person is killer at what they do.
Yeah.
And like, you're a killer insurance agent. So when I hand people off and be like, do you have an insurance agent? No, we don't. Okay. Here's the guy that you have to talk to. Give him a ring. He's killer. He's going to take good care of you.
Yeah.
And it's great because I know you will take care of them.
I do. If I take care of them, again, insurance as a broker, I feel like I talk to my clients more than most people in sales, right? Because I'm going through their renewal every year. Every time I'm talking to them, it's okay. What's new? Did you do you have a boat now? Did you put a pool in the backyard? Please don't tell me you got a pit bull. Rottweilers, pit bulls, whatever. Doberman pinchers. Don't. I'm sure they're sweet dogs. Don't go get them. If you want.
Call it a Staffordshire Terrier.
That's right. It is an American Staffordshire Terrier. It is a bully mix. It is, but I'm a broker. I've got a ton of different companies I can shop through, and if you tell me you've got a pit bull, I have one company that will take you, and you will not like the price. That's it. It's
They're really nice dogs.
Oh my gosh, I've owned two of them in the past, and they are absolutely the sweetest. But I think don't quote me on the statistic, but I read somewhere that nearly 70% of all insurance claims related to dogs are pit bulls.
Well, they mean it when they buy.
Oh,
That's
true.
Yeah. No, they're not.
Nipping.
No.
They're that's not a play fight. It's I'm coming.
Yeah.
Coming for
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So, just explain, because I'm not sure that I understand
Sure.
the broker thing for me, and how is that different from calling, whoever at State Farm?
So the difference with me, the insurance-y jargon word is captive versus independent, right? Captive means you work for one company, you can only shop that company, right? If you've ever talked to a State Farm agent, they can only shop through State Farm, right? If they give you a quote, that's the only quote they can give you, right? They might be able to change the coverage or the deductibles or things like that, but that's it. That's their only option. And State Farm's a great company, but you're relatively limited to what you can offer to your clients. I, on the other hand, I've got a whole slew of different companies, right? So when I shop through this company, if their rates aren't great for you right now, that's okay. Like, I'm going to end up putting you over here, and I'll keep you there for a year or two. And for whatever reason, if I put you with Progressive, and 2 or 3 years from now, Progressive doesn't like you anymore. These companies change their algorithms. They have all these different metrics that say, okay, here's what we like. So our insurance word is appetite, right? So if Progressive changes their appetite and all of a sudden, your rates are going up, that's okay. You can still keep me as your agent, and I'm going to put you over here with Allstate. I'm going to put you with Erie. I'm going to put you with Travelers. And so I think from a client's perspective, there's a cohesiveness which they appreciate, because I get to stay with them, hold their hand through it all. They know I'm taking care of them. And when it's time to move them, I have the opportunity to put them somewhere else that will like them better. Sometimes it just means, hey, you've had a few too many claims. I've got to put you with someone else that's not going to kick you out, right? We're in a hard insurance market right now, and that just means that every insurance company under the sun, their appetite is this big, right? If you've had 2 claims, with this company, you're not gonna get renewed, right? They're gonna send you an email 30 days ahead of time and say, hey, sorry, we love you, you got to go somewhere else. And that's not the end of the world if you're working with a broker. If State Farm non-renews you, State Farm says, sorry, you're now no longer a client. You've got to get a new agent. You've got to go through the shopping process. You've got no one that knows your history or what's going on with your situation. And so I get to move you to, if you've got a few too many claims, Progressive will welcome you with open arms. They are much more tolerant of that. Maybe Allstate will like you, something like that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's basically the difference between like a mortgage broker versus somebody who works in-house for a mortgage company.
Sure.
You just have a different swath of products that you can offer as opposed to just the one.
Yes.
Now, you mentioned insurance being a tough market right now, and I feel like I've heard that from pretty much everybody right now. And like, you're not making calls with good news right now.
Oh no.
How are you navigating that right now?
Painfully. I would say the majority of my conversations with my clients right now they are upset with how much their rates are going up. I saw a statistic that in the scope of inflation right now, auto insurance is the highest inflated product that they're tracking. I think auto insurance year over year has increased like 23%. So the majority of my clients are going, why am I spending $800 more a year for my auto insurance? I didn't do anything wrong. And so again, I've got to play the therapist a little bit. I got to go, client, I hear you. My rates went up. I can't avoid it. Right. We're in Middle Tennessee, and everyone and their sister knows someone who's lost their roof to a tornado or a windstorm or a flood. And after a while, the accumulation of, we'll say Progressive, because everyone knows Progressive. Progressive is paying for all these roofs to be replaced, right? And if you're spending $1,500 a year on your homeowner's insurance, but it costs $40,000 to get your roof replaced, how long is it going to take for you to keep paying your insurance, right? And an insurance company is here to make money just like the rest of us. So they're not going to just take that on the chin. After a while, everyone is sort of having to pay their own weight and more than their own weight, because, you know, $40,000 on one roof claim, and they're the 18th one in this subdivision that Progressive has had to replace. Like, Progressive is just like running for the hills.
Well, dude, it's been great to have you.
It's been fantastic.
Thanks
Thank
for
you, guys.
coming, Liam.
Yep.